I'm going to show everyone how I do my custom axles for my Hot Wheels. First thing we need is aluminum tubing. It's this stuff here. I get it from Hobby Lobby. It's 1/16 aluminum tubing, and it works perfect for the stock axles that come in them. And hobby files. And these are them here. I got those from Lowe's. And they work good for cutting a bigger groove in the base so that these axles will fit in here. Because as of right now, they're just a little too thick to go in there. So the first thing I do is I take my file and I file it out. I'm careful to make sure I cut it straight. That way my wheels don't sit all cockeyed in the base. And I recommend getting these files specifically because they're the exact thickness as the diameter of that tubing. And you don't really have to waller it out. You can just make one straight, one width groove in here and it fits perfect. You don't have to worry about it flopping around and trying to get it just right. If you're careful and just make one cut down through here with the file, it fits in there pretty tight. And it's going to be hard to see on this camera, but there's kind of like a box that's the exact same width as these prongs here. And that's what's higher than what's down in here. So that's what I'm trying to make flat right in here, so that the axle housing doesn't, wobble back and forth. And that way my wheels don't sit, kind of off-centered like this. And see how they'll kind of wobble back and forth. If I cut that box out of there with this file, it'll sit flat and it'll line up perfectly every time. And the idea is to hold the file straight so that you don't, cut this out too much. Try and just hit, you'll see it better when you get down to it. I can't really show you that well, but if you can just cut it just on that little box there, that's the idea. Because everything else is the right height. Unless you're trying to kind of jack it up just a little bit, and then you'll cut it down as far as you can go, and it'll put the axle further down and the tires further down, and it kind of creates a small lift kit. But that's not what I'm doing with this truck. Yeah, I can't really get it to Yeah, that's pretty good there. Next, I'll get my measurement of the exact width of the chassis right here. You want to go from this edge here all the way to that edge. And if you do that, you don't have to really pre-fit your wheels. I just made a little cut on the housing here. Let's see, I'm not left-handed, so let me see if I can do this where y'all can see it. I just kind of roll the axle housing and just put a little pressure on it, and it'll eventually cut through. Just using a razor blade. Alright. Double check my cut. Yeah, it's a little on the long side here. All right. Yeah, that's right there. Then I take my file and I just kind of file off the rough edges. And I take the round one and just stick it in the hole. And just kind of waller it out a little bit so that the axle rotates smoothly. Alright, there's that part. So that was the front. Okay. So then I take my wheels, and my wire cutters. Just try and find the center the best I can. I may end up having to cut some off anyway, more to make it fit in there. And when I'm doing this, hold the axles on the ends, because it will shoot across the room or in your eye. Okay, sometimes you may end up having to just file a little bit on the ends there to make it smoother. Okay, make sure it fits good. Yep. All right. Then take that, put that in there. You got to pre-fit everything, because this is a pretty short wheelbase here, so I'm probably gonna have to cut some of this axle off. So well, that's always a good idea to pre-fit everything first. You can see it won't go down in there all the way, so I'm gonna have to cut some off. Cut a little bit off of each one. one's already pretty short. I didn't cut them exactly even the first time, so there. Yep, that does it. See, in there I've got my housing with my axles inside of it. Some people will glue an axle inside the housing. I've had better luck just crimping it. I'll take my wire cutters, and it will cut through it, obviously, but just the right amount of pressure, and it'll crimp that axle in place. That way, if you have to do any fine adjustments as far as the width of the wheelbase, you can do that. You just kind of got to mess with it, give it a little bit more. Sometimes I'll crimp right beside it so that I don't, make sure I don't cut through. Just make 2 crimps on each one. Make sure it holds good. Yeah, there we go. Just adjust it to the way you like it. There we go. When you crimp this housing, it does bend it. So that's what you gotta fine tune. Make sure they're straight. There we go. Now what I'm doing is I'm just putting it in here and seeing how it lines up with the rest of the chassis. Alright, that's not bad. I'll just find something to sit it on. And I use JB Weld to weld that axle housing into, glue that axle housing into the chassis. You need something, it's an epoxy, so you need something to mix it up on. And I use a exact measurement on each one. I mean, I just use the same amount of resin as I do hardener. 50-50. Tends to work pretty good. And I just do it by eye. I said exact measurement, I didn't mean that. I mean just a 50-50 eyeball. And it gotta be exact. More importantly, to mix it thoroughly than to get an exact measurement. Just whatever looks to be about right. And then just mix it real good. That's about what it looks like when it's good and mixed. Should be a uniform pewter type color. Okay, just put a little bit on the axle, just a smidge. That way some gets under it. It's hard to do on camera. And you don't want to put too terrible much because it'll make a real big build, and then it'll kind of hinder the next part of the process here, where the interior has these little notches on it, these little tabs right here. Right there, to where it held the factory axle down in place. I mean, the little tabs here on the base hold it down, but these are also something that goes down on top of them to really hold the windshield in place on this one. Some cars it's the interior. But you're going to have to file this out to fit over that larger housing. And if that glue is built up too much, you're going to have to file even more, and it's just going to cause more work for you. So we've got to file this out. To fit over that bigger axle housing. Or else when you go to put it together, it won't go down all the way. And it doesn't take a whole lot, and plus it's plastic, and these files will just go right through it in no time. That should do it. A bit long. These right here are metal, so obviously it'll take a little longer. Majority of vehicles will be plastic on both front and back. And this is gonna have to dry before I go putting it down on there, so it's about as far as I can go with that for this video. But like you can see on this Datsun, it's got the tabs front and back on the interior, and those are what you'll have to file out on it to make sure that it goes down over the housing. And you just do the same with the back. It's not real hard. You just need to get a couple supplies, and I think this tubing here costs $4, I think. And I've done probably 20 pairs of custom axles with this one pack. So it goes a long way. And those files, I think, are $5 at Lowe's. And the JB Weld, you know, it's a couple bucks, $2 or $3. It's not that bad. But let's see here. Yeah, this car's got custom axles in it, I can show you. I'll get the screwdriver out so I can take it apart. See, I just stick that down in there to make sure when it hardens it, I got a good bond. So I don't have to pry on this. See, there's the custom axles on this one. These, I didn't crimp the axle. I was gluing them back then. I've just recently gone to the crimp because it allows me to adjust more. But they spin really good and they're solid. Like most cars from the factory, you can push up on that wheel and it moves kind of like it's got suspension, but these are solid. They roll really smooth. Alright guys, that's how I do my custom axles. Let me know if y'all need any help with anything. I'll be glad to help you out. Y'all have a good one.